is the Belmont Stakes race in New York. It's the third piece of the Triple Crown, and the winner of the other two races, the Derby and then the second race, the Preakness, was Justified. And Justified, jockey's name is Mike Smith. He's 52 years old and he's been riding for a while. And I've watched on the two. I watched the Derby. It was a good race. It was in the mud, and then it turned out the second race, the Preakness, was in the mud. But this Justify, nobody told him it was in the mud, but he was running as hard as he could, and won both races. Now, the triple race is rough, and very few horses ever win. In fact, there was like 25 years where no horse won the three races, including the Belmont. Now, the Belmont's a little different. I've been there in person, and it's longer than the other two races. I think the Belmont's a mile and a half, and the other two races are either a mile, mile and a quarter. So what happens is when you run those first 2 weeks and 2 weeks, you don't have much rest, and that horse starts running out of gas when he would be at the finish line of the other two, but there's still a half a mile to run. And that's one thing that bothers me about this race. I like Justify. I love to have that horse or part of that horse, but I got a feeling that since this race has extra length, about a half a mile more, and those other two runs were like 2 weeks apart, I got a feeling that this Justify might not win. But as I was studying this race tomorrow, it's very, very interesting, some of the background information that you find out about these horses. You would think nobody wants a horse. I mean, anybody, you can just go pick up a horse, walk it, ride it. But this horse, a billionaire, owns part of it, George Soros. And that's his picture, George Soros. He's a billionaire, and he doesn't want anybody to know it, but he has a company that owns part of Justify, like 15%. And then there are some other owners of Justify too. One of the keys to this, you know, you and me are worried about running fast races and winning these trophies and winning these cash. But these people that are in these horses, though, no, they're not interested in that much. If these horses can win, then they sell breeding rights on the horse. And the Justifies, after the victory in the Preakness, they were talking about a $60 million deal for Justify to sell breeding rights. Then, and then if Justify wins the Triple Crown tomorrow, they're talking about a $25 million bonus for breeding rights. It has nothing to do with who wins the race or how much money. It's just, wow, if you could have breeding rights with that horse, because then the key is how many more horses will come out with that blood that Justify has in it and will win races and win money. This is a whole different setup than going to that race tomorrow, because a lot of people involved. There are like 3 companies that own part of Justify, and they paid a lot of money to get those parts, but their main deal is to see if Justify can win the Triple Crown and then sell breeding rights to people around the world. And this just, it is not just in the United States, like China Horse Club. You know, they have horses over there, and one thing, this guy, Soros, sort of put some effort in that China Horse Club, but they didn't like it over there because he kept talking about democracy in China, and they don't want to hear nothing about democracy. But they have a 15, his racing group, Soros, has a 15% stake in Justify. So don't worry, he says he's not going to be at the race, but don't think he's not going to be watching that television tomorrow to see if this Justify can come in and win the race. Another one, this SF, which is part owner of Newgate Farm in Australia, has some rights in Justify. There are about 3 or 4 other companies that own rights in Justify. It would be nice if some little kid on the street say, oh, that's my horse Justify, and he runs off and wins the race. But you got 3 or 4 big companies, including Soros, that owns parts of Justify. And then the key is, can Justify win the race? And winning a race isn't that important. Breeding rights, because then Justify would be a triple winner. Justify would have won the Kentucky Derby last month, he would have won the Preakness, and now he would win the Belmont Stakes, and there are no 3 races any bigger than that for one horse to do and one horse to win. And those breeding rights, you know, people would just let you kill them if you could get those breeding rights and start shooting them up. Like they're talking about this American Pharaoh that won the Triple Crown at one time, gets about 50,000 every time they hook them up with another horse. So all of a sudden there's partnerships that have start getting together in these horses, and the partnership each owns part of it, and these partnerships have a lot of money. So I'm thinking, because of the length of the race, I wish I could say Justify was going to win tomorrow, but I don't think he'll win. I wish he could win, not only for winning the race, but then to see what happens with these rights that they start selling. Because if I was a horse and I could get some of that shot in the arm, or however they do it, Justify that won these 3 big races, you know, I would pay big money to get that for my horse. So that's what we're going to be looking for. It's called the Triple Crown, and can Justify win the Triple Crown, which is rare. The last horse won it, but it was a 35-year gap before anybody else won it. So let's see what happens, and we'll talk to you tomorrow, probably from the race. Thank you.